Hey Exiles, in this video I'd like to sum up my thoughts about League Start and the build that carried me through campaign. So let's start with that. The idea for this League Start was to go as a Huntress and use her accuracy stacking passives to fuel a Molten Blast build later in the maps. Through the campaign I wanted to stick with spears, but unfortunately they were pretty underwhelming, so to save myself some time I switched to Trusty Lightning Arrow, and it was way more manageable. The biggest DPS boost came after I finished the second trial and swapped Widow Hail for an accuracy bow, which only costed me just one Exile. One more thing about bows, the ones with added accuracy are pretty cheap compared to the pricey quivers needed for a Widow Hail. So Amazon feels cheaper to scale DPS compared to Dead. From time to time I had issues with mana, but I heard that pretty common problem. So it's worth mentioning if that's something you really struggle with. Amazon has an answer for it in the form of Asmeri Brew Ascendancy passive. And speaking of ascendancy choices, to be honest, I have no clue what my tooltip really means when I have the critical strikes passive. Like, how do you even read it? But in the end, leveling felt pretty smooth, even when I started investing in a crit early on, which I usually advise against. It's pretty bad idea, especially when the game is so overtuned. And by the way, who is in charge of naming these things? Come on. So, critical strikes and the second penetrate passive really helps with your DPS. The third passive I took was Predator Instinct. I feel like it's worse than penetrate because 50% more of your current DPS, which is basically non-existence, is worse than a flat fist, which is kinda rare these days on the 3 or weapons. I didn't give much thought to the infusion tech since I'm not planning to eat charges. Mystic Harvest seems pretty meh, and Stalking Panther is kind of a joke. For the gem setup, before the bow with additional projectile, I was using Scattershot, but later I switched to Magnified effect. You can also add Conk effect here, but that depends on your playstyle. The rest is a pretty standard stuff for a Lightning Arrow setup. A nice highlight is the companion skill, but you do have to sacrifice either Herald or Winddancer to use it. It's pretty easy to fight a beast with an aura, and overall the concept of the skill is quite refreshing. Reminds me, of course, of Pokemon, where you want to catch something cool. The downside is it's kinda unfinished. The attacks, effects, and your companion itself can easily be confused with enemies, especially when your companion starts launching chaos bolts of death, so sometimes you end up dodging stuff that can't even hurt you. One thing that's not really obvious is the aura's area of effect is very small. A lot of times your companion is just too far away, but it can still be a solid addition to the build. I also tried Roa. It's super fun, but I think there's a big design flaw, or maybe it's a bug. The stun bar doesn't refresh, so you constantly have to jump off your mount and remount again. Otherwise, you can get stun locked pretty easily. It works much better when you can one-shot everything, so probably not great for an early game, but later on, even with a bad design or this bug, it might make this kind of build one of the fastest for mapping when you are moving so fast while attacking. You don't really need to dodge stuff. On top of that, the new boat helmet is a nice addition. It encourages you to avoid taking any damage while boosting your attack speed and movement speed. The helmet works perfectly with high crit chance enabled by, yes, critical strikes passive. The rest of the gear is pretty standard. Right now I'm just trying to cap my resistances. Damage is totally fine. especially after the third lap. Bosses die pretty easily. Honestly, in the first few hours, I was super skeptical if I'd even be able to reach 1/3 of this DPS at this stage, so I'm happy for now. I'm planning to stick with Lightning Arrow for about 10 more levels. Once I feel more comfortable, I'll switch to Molten Blast. If it feels bad, I probably just stick with Lightning Arrow longer to farm currency. It's pretty boring plan, but with my limited time, that's what I can afford right now. So that's all about the current build. I was thinking about going deeper into some of the design choices made by GGG, do some comment about this. But in the end, it's still early access. In a few days, everything I say might already be updated. If the game feels too punishing or boring, I suggest just wait for updates. Some patches were released really fast, like the 25% less life on monster during the campaign, which made things much more manageable. So if you are on the fence, I advise playing something simple like a Lightning Arrow. The more complicated skills introduced with the Huntress seems to be just undercooked, or I don't know, something is wrong with the numbers. So right now, you might just be wasting your time if you just keep dying and dying and dying, just you are getting frustrated. And by wasting time, I mean you're basically testing content for a company for free. Nobody's paying you to play. Any knowledge or skill you gain now could be meaningless later. Since the game changes so fast. That's the advice I would give if you're struggling with the campaign. I will go over GGG design choices in a separate video once the dust settles. So that's all for now. See ya.